Welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast. Today we've got Devil May Cry 5, Thunder Force 4, Summon Night 6, sequel after sequel. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast, the podcast that's fluent in gaming. My name's Paul, and I'll be your host for today's show. Sitting next to me, not physically, but through the magic of the internet, my co-hosts out of the mighty...
That didn't go as planned.
Why did I bump on co-hosts? What are you guys? Obviously co-hosts. Out of the state of Rhode Island, by way of Puerto Rico, Arnaldo.
Hey.
And out of Brooklyn, by way of Cuba, Ozzy.
We're just weird sentient AIs. That's why. That's how we can be sitting right next to you.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Paul.
That's perfect.
Gotta get those Kubrick references when I can.
Oh, I know, right?
Listen,
that was a remarkably creepy voice, dude. I'm impressed.
We are high art.
Yeah.
Well, I'm even starting to develop feelings, Paul. So,
oh Lord,
who knows? You know?
As long as they're not anger, I think we'll be okay.
I think I developed those a few episodes ago.
Oh yes, Red Dead Redemption 2, which eventually you came around on.
Yeah. That's follow up update on Red Dead Redemption 2. I eventually came up, around. I wouldn't say yes. I gotta say liking. I guess. I'm actually into the game now. So
yeah.
I like to eat a very nice plate of crow. So I like my crow grilled. I know I've told the guys, but I haven't said it on the podcast, and here I just accept, the fate that I knew would eventually happen, that I eventually would play the game and be like, fine.
You beat your head on it long enough to enjoy it.
And I'm sure enough where I can admit, that, hey, I was a little bit too hasty with that podcast, but hey, it was humorous. Isn't that what we're trying to do?
It was classic moment.
Hey, by the way, is crow an actual food item?
I don't know, dude. But, why would you want to?
I mean, somewhere somebody eats it for sure, but I don't think it's like...
I'm pretty certain it's a delicacy somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, pigeon is.
Probably.
So...
Dude, but, not to get into too much of a digression, but why would you want to? I mean, they're so smart. It's like, why do that?
I mean, so are octopi or octopuses or however you say that.
Yeah,
they're supposed to be really, really smart, but they're underwater, so we can't really identify with them. They're easier to just eat.
Yeah, they also suffer from terrible cases of depression. But
are you serious? What are they, French? Like they have ennui?
Well, Region Free Gamers podcast. Now you get a nature show as well. No, dude. I mean, I'm thinking. Look, it has to only make sense, and this is in my particular weird lore, octopi lore. They have to be depressed. I mean, look, whenever they have sex, the male dies. The male will die after copulating.
See, that I found that's like a theme that repeats a little too much in nature,
but Arnie, it gets better. It gets better.
Oh, good.
And then the female, carries the little octopi, to term, and then she dies after she gives birth.
I think we should adopt that model.
And then the little octopi, grow up orphans. And not only that, but they are very isolated, so they spend most of their life roaming in solitude. So how could they not be? If they're smart, they have to be depressed.
Wow, dude. This is depressing me. The little baby octopus making its way in the dark, wondering where its parents are.
Wondering where it came from.
It's terrible.
I mean, it's a heartbreaking thing to behold.
Yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, we're doing them a favor by turning them into delicious food.
We're putting them out of their misery.
Sure they see it that way.
Strilly will not be
Existence is
listening to this
agony.
episode.
Existence is agony for an octopus, dude.
Apologies to all the vegan listeners of the Region Free Gamers podcast.
Sorry, Strilly. Sorry.
Anyhow, I think we can move on to less depressing topics like,
Yes.
I don't know, maybe video games.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I think we should.
So yeah,
I think
today
we should.
today we're just taking it easy, and we're going to talk about what we've been playing lately. You know, no frills other than octopus discussion, just games.
Which, you know,
but
a setting like this, you know, allows us to indulge in octopi discussion every once in a while.
Exactly.
Which,
And
by the way,
who doesn't
before
want
we
to learn about that?
Before we proceed, I have learned that octopi is actually not the correct term. It's actually octopuses.
Somebody told me that, and I keep forgetting that octopi is not correct.
Yeah. So,
Well, here's my take on that. Octopi sounds more entertaining,
That is true.
and I think eventually it'll just become the norm.
Yeah.
possibly.
If enough people say it, I think that'll just become the accepted one.
Yeah.
So
Just like
I'm
meese, the plural of moose.
exactly, meese eventually is going to 100%.
All right, guys, let's move it on.
Anyhow, before we get started on the games, though, as always, if you enjoy the show, tell a friend. And don't forget to leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcasts app.
Yes.
And don't forget to raise your arms in the air and crane kick that subscribe button.
Much like Daniel-san.
Much like Daniel-san. As Mr. Miyagi said, the crane kick, if done correctly, no can defend.
But make sure to wax on and wax off the many keyboard, controls and stuff that
The
you
many
left on
keyboard
there.
keys
Yes.
that you'll fly
Yes,
off of
yes,
your computer
please.
as you crane kick it.
You know.
Although to be fair, in Karate Kid 2, they totally defended that shit. Is there a more unlikely, like, I don't even want to call it an action movie, but is there a more unlikely action movie
Then
hero
Karate Kid.
than the Karate Kid? Like,
Yeah.
did you see the guys he was up against? Like, those guys should have mopped the floor with him. Jeez,
Pretty much,
man.
dude.
But
And
for the
listen,
fact that there are rules in a karate tournament, could he defeat these people who are like, ostensibly doing steroids as like 12-year-olds?
listen, have you seen Cobra Kai, the sequel?
No, I've
In-
not.
in
I've heard
YouTube?
good things.
Apparently, like Daniel is a complete douche, that keeps on reliving, the fact that he beat Cobra Kai.
Oh, really?
So the protagonist, I think, is the main guy, the bad guy.
Yeah.
That should be interesting because Daniel really always struck me as the guy that would end up turning into a douche afterwards. But hey, I guess I forgot about Mr. Miyagi's lessons.
I guess so, man. Mr. Miyagi eventually passes away. He's not able to keep him in line.
Yeah.
Give him a chop to the neck every time he misbehaves.
And then his
Is
dizziness
Mr.
blossoms.
Miyagi in the third one? Because who's in the third? It's like Hilary Swank or something, isn't it? Or like...
No, I think that's the next Karate Kid.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
There was like a fourth one, and that's
That's
the
right.
Hilary Swank one.
Yeah.
The third one, geez, man, you know what? I think Cobra Kai is like taken over by like a Steven Seagal lookalike.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like he had like a black ponytail, and he was like super evil.
And he was connected with the Russians, probably.
Oh, dude, come on, of course.
I can't believe that they rode that series to 4 movies.
It's incredible.
That's
Back in the 80s, you could write anything to 4 movies, dude.
That is true. I mean,
You could write a toy line, to an entire franchise.
yeah,
Back in
Dude,
the
Police
80s.
Academy had like 20 movies.
that is true. But
All because of Michael Winslow, basically.
I feel like those stayed good for slightly longer than Karate Kid.
No. They were bad.
no.
Back right in the second one, they were already bad, dude. No.
Dude, and the third one, like, oh my god, the Chinese cop, like, it couldn't have been a more racist movie.
All right,
okay.
10 minutes in.
Still no games. I think we've reached
Arnie,
that point now in
Arnie.
podcasting.
What have you been playing lately, Arnie? Please rescue this show.
So actually, I recently started playing the Karate Kid on NES. No.
Is that another LJN classic?
Yes, that is an LJN game. Because of course it is.
A Louis J. Norman classic.
Jesus.
It was all developed by a plumber, in his spare time. Go for it.
But no, I've been trying to play. I've recently moved, so most of my collection is boxed up, but I've been trying to play a decent amount of stuff. The first thing I decided to play was Ring of Red, which I've talked about before on here.
Hey.
But I was like, I'm going to finally beat this game. And I actually made it to the last mission. And then it does the thing that I hate when strategy RPGs do, which is like, up to this point, it's been fairly challenging, like nothing too hard. And then the last mission is like impossible. It's like, oh, we're going to throw like, 30 enemy units on this tiny map, and you have to like capture this one building in like a certain amount of time, or destroy every enemy, which would take like 4 hours and or is impossible. And so now I'm stuck on the last mission, which I failed like 2 or 3 times. And so I've moved on to something else. Hopefully I'll come back and be able to beat it. But I hate when strategy RPGs do that. I don't think there's a genre of game that I've gotten stuck on the last mission of a game more than turn-based strategy RPGs.
Oh yeah, for sure, dude. Disgaea was really bad at that.
Yes.
But
Disgaea is also like ridiculously long. I remember playing that game for so long and being like, is it over yet? Is it over yet?
You just have to keep grinding, dude. You just have to.
Dude, that is the grindiest game. And not necessarily in a bad way, Disgaea, but like, oh man. Well, if history has told us anything, Arnie, it means that you're never going to come back to Ring of Red.
Well, I know. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen is like, I'm going to forget about it eventually. And then like 2 years later, I'm going to load up my old save file, realize that I have no idea what's going on, and I'm going to have to restart the game again.
Yeah, always the worst.
Because
do you find that it has shaped your perception of Ring of Red? Because I do, my recollection is that this is a game that meant a lot to you because you really loved it as a kid.
Yes.
Do you find that now that has like impacted your view of Ring of Red?
I still really enjoyed like playing through it. Like, I think it's a really good game that people should check out. One thing I realized, I don't think I ever noticed this as a kid. One, because I was an idiot, and 2, because I never got far along. Like, I never got farther than like the first couple missions. This game has hilarious / terrible translation errors in it.
Oh,
it is
always interested in that.
It's bad, but it's not like it's not like constant where like every other sentence is like misspelled or there's like a word that makes no sense. But you'll go through this like conversation, this like plot relevant conversation, and all of a sudden, like, there'll just be like a completely mangled sentence or like an exclamation point where there's supposed to be like a question mark. And so it's like, it's very jarring. Like, all of a sudden it's like, where did this come from? Like, this is not your personality.
Well, I feel like that game was a launch window release for the PS2.
Yeah, it was definitely early because it's one of those blue disc games.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that, it wasn't necessarily a high budget effort by Konami. No. So they probably put like, like whatever subcontractors they could find in order to get the localization done. It's like, yeah, we speak English, Yeah. It's like,
but it's a very like, it's one of the, I feel like one thing I've learned is that I really enjoy like alternative history stuff. So this like really feeds into that.
But is the story any good, even with those translation errors?
Here's the thing is, I think the story is serviceable for what it needs. Like, it'll carry the game along, but it's not like, I wouldn't be like, this is top tier storytelling right here. It's, it's just like a bunch of words, basically. Like, it's one of those games that really relies on like its own lingo.
Yeah, I hate
to the
those.
point where you're like, if you don't follow the game, then you're just like, what do these words even mean? You know?
Yeah. It's like, oh, we have robots, but we call them Wenzers.
Exactly. That's
Yes.
almost exactly what it is. Down to like, I think that might be the name of like the robots, because it's this world where like basically Japan has been split into North and South. The North controlled by like the Soviet Union or something, and the South being like a democratic republic. I think there's a lot of parallels between like real life events here.
Yeah.
And then you control like this half Japanese, half German, sort of mech pilot who is leading this like group of insurgents into the North to try to recapture this like stolen, mech prototype. So it's basically the plot of like a Dolph Lundgren movie post Rocky 4.
Thank you.
You know.
You had to get it right, dude.
Yes, I did. I was like, no, 3 is Mr. T.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting enough, but if the alternate history component is the one that most calls out to you, and then you say in that next sentence, the story's only serviceable.
Yeah.
Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of the alternate history component being the most interesting part about it?
Absolutely. But yeah. I never claimed that my like interests make sense. This is like, and then the other thing is the art style is really cool. Like the aesthetic, and then the game mechanics are very interesting because it's not a Fire Emblem sort of thing where it's like walk up next to enemy and then like a little movie plays out. You sort of engage an enemy in combat, and then it transitions into a real-time-ish sort of thing where you sort of control the distance that your mech is from the other mech, and that affects like the percentage of your shots being accurate. So when you attack, you move into a scoped view, and then the longer you wait to attack, the better your percentage of hitting the enemy is, because it's sort of like your scope is, you're sort of aiming. The risk with that is that the enemy can then attack you while you're waiting to take your perfect shot. And then that affects like when you're hit, it sort of resets like the percentage that your accuracy is at. So there's like a lot of stuff that goes into it. There's also like you have like a crew, so you get to pick like 3 little infantry divisions that go into battle with you. And they have their own abilities that can, affect accuracy or attack enemy mechs or attack enemy like infantry units.
Right.
So there's like a bunch of little stuff that's really entertaining to do and like keeps you more engaged than a normal turn-based strategy RPG would.
Right on. And so how does it compare to like other games you've played in the genre?
I would say that it's one of I really like it because of the mechanics. Like the mechanics are the main draw. But I want to say like the game that I've played that most reminds me of it is, what was it called? Operation Darkness on the 360, which is another like alternate history sort of game where like you're playing the Allies and you're all werewolves, and then you're fighting the Axis and they're all vampires and like Hitler's in it.
That almost sounds. You know what? Arnie mentioned it to us.
I've talked about this
like
before.
when we were in New York last year.
Yes.
And it still sounds like the setting for like a teen novel.
Yes. And so like of the two, like that one, Operation Darkness, is one where like I feel like the story serves a much more important purpose than in this game, because the story in that one is so insane that you want, like, it's a lot more engaging and you're like a lot more interested in it. But mechanically, this game is much better because I feel like if you're somebody who likes playing like strategy RPGs, this game can give you something that you probably haven't experienced before.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with the question earlier. Because, like, I mean, I love strategy RPGs, right? But, you know, you run the risk when you play so many of them of encountering mechanics that have been recycled over and over.
Yeah.
And so like I'm always looking for a new experience, right? So I don't know, man. Ring of Red, it's pretty cheap, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's like complete. It's probably like $15, something like that.
Yeah,
I don't think it goes for like higher than $20.
Well, I found I lose for $1, so
yeah,
there's that. If you just want to try it and you don't really care if it's CIB, then you can find it for like $1.
You can find it for very cheap. And there's also like there's a bunch of stuff that I can't get into, but there's like a day and night mechanic where like that affects like your accuracy and like all sorts of crazy stuff. And there's different distances that you can attack. So like if you're right next to an opponent, that's close distance. If you're diagonal, that's medium. And then if you're one or more spaces away, that's long. And different mechs have different advantages at certain distances.
Right.
So, you sort of like mix and match how you want to approach any given situation.
Cool, man.
And the AI is not like butt stupid. That's also like really important.
They just throw more and more shit at you, at the last level. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Well, the last level is just like it's such a downer because you basically finish a level where you're like you kill the main bad guy and you're like, "Oh, this game is over." But then they're like, "No, there's one last level where you have to like escape." And I'm like, "Come on, man." Like,
wait. So you beat the last boss, but then you still have to do something after that?
Yes. Which is story related, which is why I'm like, I don't know.
Well, have you just gone on YouTube and found like a let's
Not
play
yet,
to finish
Yeah, but I have
game?
been tempted to be like, what's the best strategy for this? Like, what should I be doing?
Yeah. Or you could just keep on trying and butting your head against it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? And this is the last thing I'm going to say about it, but I hate when, like, the one thing I do hate about strategy RPGs is that like, for example, if I'm playing a game like Metal Gear Solid or something, and I don't know how to beat this particular part, what does it cost me at most? Maybe like 10, 15 minutes? Whereas like, if I'm playing the strategy RPG, I could be doing perfectly for 30, 40, an hour. And then if I screw up one thing, then I'm done and I have to start the whole thing over again.
Yeah, that's rough.
And so I'm just like, there's only so many times that I'm going to be willing to invest that kind of time into trying to successfully do this.
Yeah, fair enough. After a while, yeah, dude, that makes sense, I guess. Like, I mean, do you have the ability to grind and just become overpowered?
No.
Oh.
No. Because
so it acts as a wall, basically.
Yeah, you can't repeat missions once you've completed them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
And so
So maybe you don't come back to that one.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, there's also like a limited number of characters. You only ever get up to like 8 mechs, I think. And there is no permadeath, but what happens is all your units that survive to the end of a given mission get like a big XP bump. And so like, if your character is dead, it doesn't get that XP bump. And so you can end up like having really like uneven characters across the board depending on how good you are at keeping your mechs alive.
Oh yeah, dude, no. My obsessive compulsive disorder would never allow that. I would just keep replaying the mission until everybody was alive and then move on to the next one. Yeah.
Which is basically how you play Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's how I play Fire Emblem too. Like mostly I hate, like, I'll let characters die sometimes, but it's so hard for me. Like if it happens,
it's extremely difficult.
If it happens at the beginning, like I'll be like, okay, not worth it to go back. But if it's like middle towards the end of the campaign, I'm like, no, I need this character to be alive.
Well, listen, in Fire Emblem Awakening, I mean, I let a few characters die, close to the beginning that I then later regretted because, the mechanic of that game is that later you get their children. And, and I missed out on a few of them because I let some of the characters die.
Yeah.
Which one was like the scholarly magician? I forget her name.
Robin?
Yeah. Well, that one I let die, and it's like, well, I'm never gonna get her offspring. So I will probably play Fire Emblem, like you do, Paul, going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more enjoyable that way, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, screw permadeath.
So then the other game I started playing recently, which Ozzy had told me something about this game that I didn't know, was I started playing Summon Night 6 Lost Borders on PS4, which I think
please tell me about this one.
Okay, so I've only played like an hour's worth of it. So far, I like it. It's kind of like, and I'm struggling to find like a good comparison point here because I think the one I have in my head doesn't work at all. But to me, it kind of looks like Mario plus Rabbids, like the combat. It's sort of like you're on this grid and you control like one or more characters and you sort of walk around to different enemies and attack them and then do that stuff. But you have like little summons you can do that like buff you. So far, I really like it. I think the art style is really cool. I despise the voice acting in this game. And I don't know, because I'm fairly like new into it, but the delivery on some of these lines is very rough in English.
Is it that you think that they just hire like a bunch of low rate author actors and just
I don't even know. I think it might have been something where it was like we're doing one take and that's it, because sometimes it's good and then sometimes it's like, ooh, that sounded like you could have done a little bit better than that. But I've only had like 3 characters thus far, and I mean, it seems like it's going to be your standard sort of JRPG, lone boy and his like humanoid sidekick wandering the wasteland. They've never met anybody else, and then 2 random people fall from the sky, and now he gets whisked in their adventure.
And one of them is a very sexy woman, or
one of them. I mean, I think the person I'm looking for right now is supposed to be the sexy woman, but I've already found the Lolita sort of 10-year-old girl character that always makes me uncomfortable.
Now Nabokov is the best-selling author in Japan.
Dude, are you serious?
I'm just fucking around.
Okay.
But it says a lot. It says a lot that Paul like immediately was like, "Yeah, I could see that."
Yeah,
I don't think any of us would be surprised.
But I think you had told me that the guy who worked on the translation for this used to be Working Designs guy. Is that right?
No. Like the localization was actually it was done by Victor Ireland, and Victor Ireland was the president of Working Designs.
Okay.
So after Working Designs went bankrupt in 2005, he formed this company. I think it's called Gaijin Works.
Yes. They I think they published the game because it's on the logo.
Yeah, and so he didn't have the same amount of money that he had during the Working Designs. They were, I think that it's just things were just a lot cheaper back then. I mean, you didn't really need a lot of money now. Nowadays you don't need so much.
It's funny because now that you say that. That makes perfect sense, because this was one of those games where you would get a random disc art on your copy. I think there were multiple variants.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Much like Dragon Force, was that the one on Saturn that had like 4 different disc variants?
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Well, now that makes me want to buy it. I'm just kidding.
It's like But yeah, so that one I'm looking forward to putting a little bit more time into, because I really want to play some more modern RPGs. I feel like I got my PS4 and that's what I wanted to do, and then I played Persona 5 for like 1,000,000 hours, and then I really haven't gone back to that well. So I want to start exploring that a little bit and seeing like, what modern JRPGs are up to, because I've been playing a lot of handheld ones on my 3DS, but not as many console ones.
Well,
it's funny, like, sorry, Ozzy, go ahead.
No, I mean, no, go ahead, Paul. I mean, I don't want you to lose your thought.
No, it's nothing. Like, I came very close to actually buying Summon Night 6 yesterday.
Oh, really?
Because I was just, I went online to, I didn't buy the Trails of Cold Steel remake for PS4. And then Masa did an Instagram post about it, and I was like, God damn it. And so I had to go online and buy it because he made it sound really good. I don't like buying the same game twice, right?
Yeah.
Like I find it very, and but there's enough extra value in Trails of Cold Steel that I'm like, all right, I can stomach paying extra for this.
Yeah.
In any
Because it has
case.
the DLC in it, right?
Yeah, it's got the DLC in it. You know,
and you
it
can
has
import your save, I think.
Yes, those are that's actually the two things that made me buy it. The fact that you could import your save file, and it has all the DLC. So I'm like, all right, this is now worth it. But you know, so I'm going through the store where I often buy my games online. And they tend to have a lot of stuff in stock that other places don't, you know, a little bit more obscure stuff, including Summon Night 6, right? And so I'm like, this looks like something I'd want to play. I'm not sure if... The thing is, though, like, they had it available for the Vita and the PS4. Like, how do you think this game would look on the Vita?
Probably better.
I think it will look fine, because it's not... I don't think... I mean... Take it from somebody who's like completely talking out of his ass right now, but just from looking at like the little bit of graphics that I have looked at, I don't think it's doing anything that's like would push beyond what the Vita's doing. Like, I don't think you'd get a downgrade in the Vita version. And worst case scenario, you could remote play it, I guess, if you really wanted to get it on the PS4 and then play it on the Vita.
Yeah. No, it's true. And you know what? Realistically, like, I play the Vita, I don't know, 80% of the time at home anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, it wouldn't exactly be a huge departure if I was to just remote play it onto the Vita.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, like, Ozzy, you've used the remote play function before, right?
Yeah, I mean, it works just fine for, I guess, RPGs, because you don't need the twitchy, you know, response time. But it's just, I don't like the artifacting. I find that those things, at least for me, they get in the way of my enjoyment of the game when it just kind of likes, you know, think about, you know, when a YouTube video is buffering. Back in the old days when the internet was not great and they had to buffer, and, you know, it just looks all like cloudy and blurry and stuff like that. You know, it's not pervasive completely, but it's there. And so it can start getting, you know, in the way. And the fact that, you know, it takes maybe like half of a second in order for, you know, the character to respond to your input. That, I mean, I find it to be unacceptable. So you know, some people, you know, it works for some people. I don't think it's something that I would do for a long time. It was just kind of like, for me, it was like a novelty. I tried it and I was like, all right, I'm not doing this anymore.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, for some people it might not be an issue, but for me, I don't want to do it that way. I don't want to play games that way.
It sounds like a deal breaker for me too. Yeah. Yeah,
it's the same thing right now with like this new Google Stadia, or however the hell you pronounce that nowadays, which is gonna be like a fully online, you know, service essentially, you know, where it's all gonna be streamed. And they're saying, well, you know, you can play Doom, but, you know, there is this delay, there's this lag, but it's not game breaking, but you can notice it. And it's like, well, if I can notice it, then for me, it is game breaking. So it's like, you know, maybe some people want to have a shitty experience. I mean, let them, that's their prerogative. Sorry, that was uncalled for. I don't know. If you're gonna spend, if you're gonna spend, you know, a bunch of money on a console, and that console is still gonna lead to you, you know, having to grapple with the fact that there is a lag between the time that you press a button and then, you know, the character reacts, then I think that's an issue. It's like, it's unnecessary. It's like, you know, it's not like nowadays you need like a $1,500 PC to run games. Most of the games nowadays have a lot of parity between releases. I mean, you could get maybe a few more bells and whistles in the PC version. You could get mods or whatever. But, you know, it's not like back in the day when if you played, you know, Quake 2 on the PS1, you would be getting a much different experience than Quake 2 on the PC. So it's like they're trying to bring this future, but this future is not ready. And that's how I feel about remote play. It was a taste of the future, but it's a future that we, even at this point, have yet to reach. So ahead of its time is something that's said positively in many circumstances, but it can also be a negative. It's like you may be releasing something that may be ahead of its time because it's undercooked. And it's just the technology is not there. And just the fact that you tried it doesn't mean that it was a good idea. So, in other words, you don't get a participation trophy for this.
No.
So, that's kind of where we are with remote play.
All right. Duly noted. Then maybe if Arnie continues to enjoy it, and it sounds like something I would like, I'll probably pick it up on the Vita then, in that case.
Yeah.
And I tried remote play with Persona 5, which is probably about as best as you can get with, trying, remote play. But at the same time, even when you're trying to sneak up on the enemies and the like, I mean, that can, be a little bit tricky because of the delay, but, I wouldn't do it personally. I just want to carry through on the thought that I had before, which is that, Arnie, it seems to me like the dialogue which you actively hate might have a lot to do with, the fact that this is former working designs people, because back in the day, they had like their own type of tone and flavor. And they were very irreverent, and a lot of people didn't like that because they were like, why is this Japanese game inserting like American pop culture references?
Yeah.
And it seems like the localization was kind of done on a budget, and so they had to, bring in, complete voiceovers or whatever, and they just had to make the best that they could with that.
I hesitate to blame localization unless it's like completely horrendous. I think that sometimes it's just like you get a script and there's just not a lot you can do with it. If the original Japanese sort of dialogue is already kind of I think there's only so much you can do to sort of make that better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of these Japanese RPGs, they're just cranked out, or strategy RPGs or whatever, it is. I mean, they're just cranked out with like the most bare bones of scripts. It's like, okay, we'll take this archetype and take this trope and take this trope, and oh wow, you have a game now.
Yeah.
Or
Which
you
is
have
a
a story.
shame, especially when like the mechanics are good, because if I'm expected to spend, 50 to 100 hours with this game and these characters, I need to have something that won't drive me insane. Also, I mean, I will be honest, I have not been opposed to like muting a game and just reading the subtitles and like listening to a podcast or something while I'm playing.
Dude, 100%.
So, if it gets like that bad, it won't sort of ruin the entire thing for me.
Cool, man.
Anything else you've been playing, dude?
Yes, I got one more, and to go on that roll, I think this one is also one that Paul will connect with. I started playing, and I think it was partially my frustration with Ring of Red. I was like, I want to play something completely different. So then I went and I did not. I started playing Sakura Wars. What is it? Oh! So Long My Love on PS2.
This is why I love you, Arnie.
Yes.
Please continue.
Which is a game that I bought. I bought the one you bought, Paul, which is the big box one, at GameStop, probably like, it had to have been like 2009, 2010, like around the time when I got like Persona 4. They were just like clearing out these, all their PS2 stuff. So I got that, and I got Star Ocean Till the End of Time, also in a big box, which I have also not played, and I should. But I started playing Sakura Wars. I had started playing it before, and I barely played it and then put it down. I think because I was playing Persona 4. But I started again. I'm actually really enjoying it because I think of the three that I've mentioned so far, this is the one that sort of grabbed me the most. And it's not perfect. Like, there's stuff about it that I don't like, but it sort of, it's scratching that Persona itch in the sense that, like, it's got a little bit of that social aspect that I've now learned that I really enjoy in RPGs.
Yeah.
But this game, at least insofar as I've played right now, is very, 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 sort of story and social interaction heavy. Like I've been playing for 4 hours, I think, and I've had 2 combat experiences.
Yeah.
I'm about to go into my 3rd combat experience. And I don't know if that's I don't know how long this game is, so I don't know if it's like, well, 4 hours, you barely like finished the tutorial at this point.
Yeah.
But it's very like combat is very few and far between in this game. It sort of plays out like an anime, I think is the best way that I could put it. Like each chapter is divided into episodes, like they call them that. And it's sort of, you do like every segment you're doing a specific task. And you have a watch that's sort of every time you interact with somebody or you do something, the watch sort of, like moves to a different time. You know, I think it's like 5 or 10 minutes or something. So it kind of is like Persona where like every action you take sort of moves time forward. And you sort of have to manage how you're going to spend your time, who you're going to interact with, what are you going to do regarding the current objective. And then once the clock sort of reaches the time that you're supposed to do the main thing, your character is like, oh, time to do the main thing now, and like automatically moves on to whatever they're doing. So it's an interesting mechanic. I'm not sure how like important it is to develop the social bonds yet, because all I've seen so far that it does is it gives you combat, like extra combat effectiveness, in that when you and an ally are in specific positions, you can do a combined attack or like a double special attack, and like the closer you are to that person, the more damage that attack does to enemies. But it's not like Persona where there's like, you know, sort of you're pushed to explore these bonds, because that unlocks like, you know, bonuses to like fusing personas and, you know, other combat statistics. And then like there's a story behind each character.
Right.
So
that sounds, so just to give you a little bit of a heads up, I think Masa told me that game is only like 20 hours or something. Like,
interesting.
Does that kind of vibe with what you've seen so far?
It's weird because I'm only on episode 2, and I think I've already spent like 4 hours on it. So what I'm thinking now is, what it probably is that there's an episode per each member of your squad, and then that's it.
Yeah,
if it's 20 hours
and maybe like
long.
A final one or something.
Yeah, and then like a thing, because basically the way it works is like, the first episode is just all about you, because it's like, oh, you're the new kid, blah, 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 all this, like, you know, tropey anime stuff. And then the second episode follows, like, one of your teammates the whole way through. And then now I'm at the boss of that episode. So I think that's the structure that it's sort of going to work with, is like, you have to deal with a thing relating to one of your squad mates, and then you fight a boss at the end. And then you'll probably fight a boss, like a final boss at some point. And if that's the case, it's funny because I think I actually prefer that. Because I feel like a game like this with these characters, sticking and like 80 to 100 hour experience onto this, the wheels would fall off immediately.
Well, there would have to be so much filler,
yes,
right? Like, you know, you can't sustain a story for that long, in all seriousness, right? Like, 20 hours, you can tell something... You can tell something nice and tight with a focus on a few characters and get it done. Yeah.
That actually makes me really happy to know that now, because like a breezy 20 hours, as insane as that sounds, it's like, I feel like it's perfect for something like this. Because I don't know if you've played this yet, but this is another game where like, when you open like your copy, it'll have 2 discs inside. One of them is the English voice cast, and the other one is the Japanese voice cast.
No way.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Highly suggest putting in the English voice cast for hilarity's sake alone.
Oh.
It's amazing. Basically, the game is set, so Sakura Wars, basically like, there's 3 major cities in the world that have like defense forces. Tokyo, Paris, and New York. And this one takes place in New York. So it's like a stylized version of New York. And then obviously, like, all your teammates are what you'd expect. It's like Japanese girl who you can't tell if it's a boy, black girl from Harlem who's a lawyer by day and like a superhero by night, I guess.
Awesome.
And then my favorite, Gemini Sunrise, who is a Texas cowgirl, accent and all, who is obsessed with samurais.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
That's so great.
And I think there's like a couple other ones that I haven't met yet. But
dude, what a name.
Oh yeah.
Gemini Sunrise.
Gemini Sunrise.
That's strong.
And then I think the other girls' names are like Karen, like the Greek god, Archer. And then what's the other girl's name? I think it's like Subaru something. I don't know her last name.
Subaru
Yes.
4-wheel drive?
Yes, she is the Japanese girl, and her name is Subaru.
That's fantastic.
You're also Japanese. You were transferred from Tokyo to New York.
Yeah.
But no, the game, I mean, the game is ridiculous. Like, story-wise, it's insane. Which is another reason why I think the 20 hours, like, works, because I could see this getting, like, I mean, it's old within, like, 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, having to deal with it for more than, like, you know, a short RPG length would be, like, a lot. But
it's so funny that you're, like, having to deal with it, but still enjoying it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, like, listen, I feel like something like this would not exist today, you know? Or if it did, I feel like it'd be a lot more, like, like, people would not sort of engage with it as much as they would have back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, I think, like, when this released, I don't think it stood out very much. One, because it's probably, like, an insanely low print run. And two is because, like, shit like this just happened more often. Whereas, I think if it released now, it'd be like, what is going on? Like, people would like, know about this. Like, I think this is meme worthy.
You know what else is weird about this game? That, like, very light pastel color
Yes.
on the cover. Like, you can barely see this game if it's on a shelf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did they hope to sell copies of it? Like, you can the title is like in a super small font.
Oh yeah, the
It's
title on this
bizarre.
game, like, Ozzy, like, I am not lying to you. When you look at the cover for this game, the title is maybe like 1% of the entire cover. It is
I'm looking
so
at it right
small.
now.
It is
I'm
so
looking at
tiny.
it right now.
Like,
It is bonkers, man. Like, and when you look at the Wii version of it, like, the cover is spectacular. Like, the title's front and center. The colors are bright and they pop and they're deep. And then you have this PS2 version. It looks like a watercolor almost painting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually being generous,
I
because
mean,
at least watercolor has, like, its own particular style. This is
Can I
just
just
like a
say
regular...
that I prefer the PS2 cover?
Oh, of course you would.
no, I will say, in defense of Ozzy, that cover was basically the reason I picked it up, because I was like, okay, there's like a cowgirl and somebody in a suit and like a samurai. I'm like, it's one of those covers where I've gleaned 0% of what this game is about by looking at this cover right now.
Yeah.
But it's
Fair
like,
enough.
and I think there's like an American flag in the background or something.
Yes,
Am I
there is.
remembering
Sure
this
is.
correctly?
Yes, there is. Just insert an American flag in order to make it a little bit more cheesy.
I mean, I was just like, I have to play it. Like, I have to know what's in this. So, you know, overall, like, not for everyone, but I think if you're not looking for something like super serious and, you know, you have, you know, 20 hours to give to something like this, I think you could do a lot worse than Sakura Wars.
So long, my love.
Yes, So Long
Say
My
that.
Love. Can't forget the
Yeah.
subtitle.
Yeah.
Which I think is like, what, the fourth game in this series? Like,
Number 5. dude.
number five. And it's the
Yeah.
first one to ever release I think the only one at this point to ever release in
correct.
the West.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, that I really enjoyed. My dog is barking right now. I'm sure you can hear that.
Nice.
It'll be a nice soundscape for people. It's like they're here in my house. But the other thing I found really entertaining about it was that like dual disc aspect. Like I've never seen that before, so I'm very curious to like pop in the Japanese voice cast disc and like maybe play that for a few hours as well.
Yeah, I'll have to ask you if the save files are interchangeable.
Oh, you know what? I did not even think about that.
Yeah, I would hope that they are.
Yeah.
And you could just like pop in whichever disc you want to play at that moment and just continue from your save file, but it's possible it's not. Maybe on our break we can look that up and not sound like we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So with that, shall we take a break?
Yeah, definitely time for a little break here.
Break time.
So yeah, during our break we'll do a little bit of research. Ozzy and I will argue about who gets to talk about games next, and yeah, we'll be back in a minute.
All right.
Alright guys, and we're back. So, Ozzy, you win the fight. Tell me what you've been playing lately.
Oh man, I'm a little bit scraped. That was rough.
So I fight with my nails is what you're saying?
We were trying to be sentimental about this and it didn't go quite as planned. Hey, AIs have feelings too, okay? But anyways, I have actually been using my Xbox One X, which I have completely ignored for like
Your
the
Taco
last...
Bell Xbox One X?
My Taco Bell Xbox One X that I got from a friend that won the raffle in, Taco Bell by eating too many chalupas.
I think I saw somebody with it. Does it... I think like when you turn it on, it makes like the Taco Bell sound, right?
No, it doesn't, but it would be so much better if it did.
Oh my
I
god,
could have
that'd be
sworn
fantastic.
that was a thing.
Lost opportunity. Or if it would say, Yo quiero Taco Bell.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe it's like an Easter egg inside it or something.
It would have said like Live Moss or something.
No, there's absolutely nothing beyond, the inserts that it has inside. There's nothing to differentiate it, really.
Okay.
It's just, the inserts say, hey, you have eaten too many of our chalupas, so, you have the good fortune of winning one of our coveted Xbox One X. But, if it had like I don't know, like a chalupa skin or something.
Like if it had like the bell engraved onto the top of it or something.
Yeah, but it doesn't. So no, I don't think that. I think that the collector's item value of this is not going to be as high as, let's say, a Mountain Dew original Xbox.
Exactly.
But
Dude,
yes,
I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were kidding when you said you had a Taco Bell Xbox One X.
No,
I'm that serious.
100%
I'm absolutely serious.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's actually, the story of it is that my friend, he was eating at Taco Bell and he won, one of the prizes, and one of the prizes was the Xbox One X. And he's like, hey, I just had a kid, so I don't really, I can't really play now, so maybe you want to buy it off of me? And I was like, oh, I don't really want an Xbox One X, but I could help, my friend out. And so I did. And literally I put in The Witcher 3. I saw if it looked any better. It did. It was playing at 60 frames per second, which was good. Yeah. And then I literally never turned it on again. It came with Gears of War 7 or whatever.
No, it's a 4, I think.
Sorry, I need to tone down the snarkiness. And I have yet to play Gears of War 6. No, anyways, so I finally popped it open again and I played it again. And I remember what input on my TV it was. And because I wanted to play Devil May Cry 5 the way that it was meant to be played.
Right.
At silky smooth 60 frames per second, without a damn hitch. And so that's a good purpose, to have an Xbox One X for. And, so yeah, I've been playing Devil May Cry 5 and, huge Devil May Cry fan. The first Devil May Cry, I don't know if we've talked about it before in the past, but it's one of those games that I consider to be a watermark moment for action games, where we went from not really being able to portray 3D action, in a very intuitive and smooth way, to essentially, being able to, do very stylish moves and perform very stylish moves and make the 3D action look good rather than make it look like, Contra the Sea Adventure. So I think that much like The Matrix before it, which came out 2 years earlier, and no doubt Devil May Cry was influenced by The Matrix, I think that those were works that really changed how we view action. And Devil May Cry, you can see a through line between that game and even other games now that are still kicking, like God of War, because it put so much more of an emphasis on having it look good, so that if anyone was looking at the game, they would say, I could just look at this game and I would be entertained. So it's not just the act of playing the game that's enjoyable, but also how cool it all looks. And so Devil May Cry 3 was also fantastic. Devil May Cry 4, I played a little bit of it, but I never got into it for whatever reason. I may revisit it. And the emo DMC, that game actually plays very, very damn well. It's a game that unfortunately gets a lot of slack because of its, reimagining of the Devil May Cry series. But it's actually a very, very solid game. I would recommend it to anyone.
Gotcha. So is the Dante from DMC in this game?
No. They
like,
literally, I think they put that game, not even underneath the cupboard. They put it into one of those IKEA couches that turns into a bed, and they put it inside because it also has a storage in there, so that they're gonna forget about this game and that it exists for like the next 20 years until someone is like, oh man, I'm cleaning out this couch and I found the DMC here.
Well, that's the thing, is like they
completely ignored it. Like they were just like, we're just going to like sweep this aside.
Yeah, they were like, well, we gotta reboot after Devil May Cry 4, and then they were like, well, I guess we're not gonna reboot anymore.
Well, I think we've talked about this. The problem with Capcom around that time was that it was run by Keiji Inafune. It wasn't run by Keiji Inafune, but he had a pretty big voice in kind of like the creative side.
Yeah.
And he really was all in on that, Japanese developers were past their prime, and that, Japanese sensibilities were just holding games back.
Yeah.
And so he really wanted a Western, focus.
They wanted to make games that
games.
like appealed to Western players more so than Japanese players.
Exactly, and then you realize that the Western players that would be interested in those franchises, were interested in those franchises because they were Japanese, not because they were trying to ape Gears of War. And so that's how you ended up with things like Lost Planet 3, the horrid Bionic Commando reboot. And a bunch of
I got that recently, actually. I haven't played it yet. Thanks for letting me know what to expect.
Well,
it was like $5.
Apparently that game's story is that your bionic arm is actually your dead wife. So,
oh, sweet.
This makes me want to play it even more.
If you don't see that out there in the distance, that's called a shark, and you're about to jump that shit.
Wait. So you're telling me that they were like, we need to stop with this Japanese bullshit. We need to appeal to Western players. And their idea of that is to, let's make a character who has a bionic arm that's also his dead wife.
Yeah.
That sounds like the most Japanese shit I've ever heard in my life.
Listen, dude, I live in a very homey neighborhood of New York. Whenever I go out in Brooklyn, I see hobos with arms for dead wives, all the time. So that's exactly what happens here.
Oh my god!
In that sense,
their shopping carts would be their dead wives.
That was very insensitive of me. I'm sorry, guys.
Does the arm have a name? Do you remember what the arm's name is?
I don't know.
Sorry, Ozzy, did you just say that was insensitive of you?
That was very insensitive of me. I should have.
Dude, I'm the
that.
one who used the word shopping cart.
But I said the word hobo. I feel bad, guys. I apologize. This is not me. My snarkiness level in service of humor went too far. But in any case, bringing it back to DMC, so I think DMC is probably one of the better results of that push because it was developed by Ninja Theory, and Ninja Theory had done Heavenly Sword. They had done Enslaved Odyssey to the West.
I like that.
And most recently, they did Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and they're a really, really good developer. And they were recently just acquired by Microsoft. So I'm looking forward to what they have to do, and maybe it will be an excuse to turn on my Xbox One X again. So DMC, when I played it, I was annoyed because it's almost like it was a fuck you to people that like Devil May Cry. Like, they were actively, like, spiting people that like Devil May Cry. Like, saying, like, look, guys, you like this really ridiculous shit. Like, you're pissed off that we don't have this, like, macho, cocky Japanese archetype, that you're really fascinated in because you played the game when you were 13 or whatever. And it was like they were actively spiting those players. Like, like, we don't care for your cheesy Japanese tropes. And so it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But, ultimately when you play it, dude, the game is super solid. Like, the action is silky smooth. It's versatile. It looks great. I would say right now the game is like $19, on the PS4 Definitive Edition, dude. So I would pick it up. I honestly want to play it and I want to play through it, but I have to finish Devil May Cry 5 first. But going to Devil May Cry 5, Capcom, if you haven't heard, they're back, which I'm very happy about, because they've had a terrific, couple of years, which started with like Resident Evil 7, kind of like kicking down the door, literally with an axe, and they then worked on Monster Hunter World, which I know Arnie didn't like, but it was like their best-selling game. And now
I've never heard a rant like what Arnie did on Monster Hunter World.
Listen, I tried. I enjoyed making my little cat companion and making a nice, cute outfit for him.
I spent so much time in that game just like making the cat noise and fucking around with my dog. My dog was like, "What are you doing? Like, what is this thing coming from the TV?"
Do you think if Capcom's like push to Western gamers had worked out, that in Monster Hunter World, instead of a cat companion, it would have been your dead wife?
Nagging you from beyond the grave.
Make sure to put out that campfire.
Why isn't the laundry done?
You can't go out questing until you finish your taxes.
My mother always told me you would use a spear. I don't know why I didn't believe her. I don't know what that accent was. I don't know what I just did.
Kind of like Jewish New York wife. Oh man, we're being so insensitive today.
I just assumed you'd have like the Latina accent for your impression.
I don't even want to pull that off, honestly.
This is
going off the rail.
Let's go back to Devil May Cry 5.
No, so and Resident Evil 2 just came out, which was also fantastic. So I think Capcom is doing terrific. They finally realized that, look guys, people like our games because of a particular, mood, a particular tone, and, we just have to play to those strengths. And they're basically listening to the fans, which is something that, thankfully, other companies like Sega have also been doing, which I'm going to talk about Sega in a little bit, so we can deal with that a little bit later. But in any case, Devil May Cry 5 feels very much like if the team that did Devil May Cry 3 literally just did a sequel the next year.
Okay, nice.
It's everything that you love about Devil May Cry, and it's just completely seamless in how it carries on, the legacy of the games. I would say it's even more faithful than Devil May Cry 4, because Devil May Cry 4 was, trying to insert a new character into the fold, which was Nero, and, because of that, a lot of people were unhappy with it because they still had traumatic memories of playing through Metal Gear Solid 2 as rated.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people had like a twitchy reaction of like, oh, I really don't like this. And then, DMC came out and then they really had something to complain about.
Yeah.
But DMC 5, maybe I can finally start talking about it.
I think it was like the perfect strategy by Capcom. It's be like, oh, you think you hate Devil May Cry 4? Well, let me show you.
Dude, because it's funny, like, at one point in DMC, like, Dante, like, a mop, like a white mop falls on his head so that it looks like he has white hair.
God. Oh my god.
So it's like they're really, like, just fucking with the players. Like, like, we're not doing this.
I want to ask you guys a question that is related to Devil May Cry 5. And that is, I don't think that there is a better example of, like, how gamers are sort of affecting how companies sort of market their games now than the fact that, like, it seems like old man, like, past his prime protagonist is, like, the thing now, right?
Like, you think not really.
Of, like,
that
bearded Kratos, you think of Joel from The Last of Us, you think of old man Dante. Like, it used to be, like, super cool, hip, like, I'm young and strong and, like, snarky guy, and now it's like, I've seen some shit and I, like, hate everybody.
Yeah, perhaps.
I don't know if it's a trend, but it's definitely, I agree, Arnie, like, it's definitely more prevalent, although I don't know if it'll be the dominant form of protagonist.
But I think that, like, I feel like I never saw characters like that before, and now I feel like I see them a lot.
Well, the natural evolution of this, guys, is that in the future we're gonna have bald, bearded guys that live in the Yukon. I
mean, that is what Kratos essentially is.
Well, that's essentially Kratos. God, Paul, are you Kratos?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Anyways, listen, guys. Devil May Cry 5. Yes, old man Dante is there, and he looks a little bit creepy. He looks a little bit lecherous. But it actually has 3 characters, and it has Nero, and Nero's getting like the full Metal Gear Solid 4 Raiden treatment. Like, he's just like, oh, you didn't like Nero? Oh, we're gonna make him super cool, and you're gonna love him. So that you have a nice plate of crow. But I also, you can also play as V, which is kind of like the completely new character. He really looks like one of the, band members of My Chemical Romance, or something. Probably wears eyeliner. But he's pretty cool, and, his playstyle is actually really, really fascinating because he has a very long range style. He doesn't fight with his own arms or anything. He fights through familiars. And, this just goes to show how much of a, slavish, devotion, the developers had to the original series, which is that the familiars are actually familiars that Dante, they were bosses in Devil May Cry 1. So it's just kind of like a callback to the series' history. But essentially, you have a wisecracking crow, and that's one of your familiars, and the other one is a very silent panther. And then there's a third one, which is a golem that is just completely indestructible. And so the only trick with his playstyle is that in order to finally defeat enemies, you have to go in for the kill and kill them and execute them with your cane, like sword cane. So there's a fun mix of like long range, and then you have to go in quick, in order to put them out, and then you can chain combos from executions, so It just ends up looking extremely, extremely cool. And by the way, in order to gain more like devil energy, he reads poetry in the middle of the fight.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he actually reads it. I'm not kidding. It's not like he just pops open a book and you can only assume that it's poetry that he's reading, but he could be reading, how to do your taxes in 10 easy steps. No. He's actually reading poetry. And you listen to it. So I haven't played through all of it, so I must imagine that he has, some connection to Dante or Nero, because he does convert into a devil. He does have a devil trigger animation, and his hair turns white. So who knows? Maybe this is the Dante from DMC, and I just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
I would highly doubt it. And then, of course, there's Dante, who caveat emptor, I still haven't played with because he basically gets his ass kicked right at the beginning. So you don't see him for like the first however many missions. So, and it's kind of fun because the combination of the 3 different players, really has a lot of different playstyles. So, for example, Nero is very close range because he has the devil arms, and the devil arms has like a hook, which, his devil arm is hopefully not his dead wife. But, you can pull in enemies close and you can mix and match because near the beginning of the game, like a character, a mysterious character that I shall not name, rips out his arm. And so he's basically, a one-armed man, and so the replacement is a bunch of devil arms that are very disposable. So, for example, if you get hit while using them, they get destroyed, but you pick them up over the game. And that's kind of his playstyle. You like mix and match devil arms that have different kind of playstyles. And he has a gun and I think a sword. Yeah, and a sword that you can rev up as a motorcycle. So, dude, it's like everything I wanted when I was like 9 years old. So, yeah, that's Nero. And Dante is kind of like a mix of both because he has like a variation of weapons that he can use, whereas V, he's more long range. So it just looks stylish as hell, dude. And the graphics are fucking stellar. Like Capcom and the Resident Evil engine, they've really hit gold with that. They've done a terrific job with that because a lot of Japanese developers now are using the Unreal Engine. But it's nice to see a Japanese developer using a proprietary engine that is very versatile and that also looks completely state-of-the-art and cutting edge. So they've done very well in that respect. But yeah, man, I mean, it's a very good continuation of the series that I am really itching to complete if I ever have time. So I would say try it. If you were interested in Devil May Cry, then great. If you're not interested in characters giving wisecracks and, cursing every so often, needlessly, then maybe skip it if that bugs you. But if this is what you came to the game for and you have your eyes wide open that this is part of the whole experience, then absolutely go for it, dude.
Yeah, I this is definitely on my list, but like, it's one of those games where I'm like, I'll just wait for it to go on sale because I know it's going to go on sale, within a few months or whatever, right?
I got it for $40, dude. So I mean, I didn't even have to pay full price. And I got it for.
Oh, that's like $100 Canadian, though.
Yeah, pretty much. But also the other aspect of it is that it came out like 3 weeks before Sekiro came out, which was another like action adventure game. So yeah. I feel like it's one of those games that's going to, get lost in the shuffle as the year wears on and more releases come out. But it's a great return to form to it, and I can't wait to see what Capcom, does in the future. So hopefully they keep on reviving series. Maybe a decent final fight, that we can all appreciate. Who knows, dude? But the sky's the limit. Maybe even Alien vs Predator can come out again. Who knows? That would be fantastic.
That will never happen.
But yeah, 2 thumbs up to Devil May Cry 5. And yes, it would never happen, but Devil May Cry 5, highly recommended. I'm taking questions, guys. Anything that you want to know about Devil May Cry 5, but we're afraid to ask, I got it. So just let me know.
I do have one question.
How does it compare to... Sorry, okay. No. I'm going to go first on this one. How does it compare to Bayonetta? Like, if you had to pick between Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, where am I going?
Dude, Bayonetta's just batshit, man. Bayonetta is just completely batshit. You know what? It all depends on what tone you want in your game. If you want like slick, cool action that's very macho, Devil May Cry. If you want just like batshit, fan servicey, I'm seeing a lot of boobish here, and I want just like shit to be flying off the screen, then probably Bayonetta. I mean, I don't think it's an either or because they complement each other quite well, and the Hideki Kamiya, connection is there.
Yeah.
But Bayonetta is just batshit, dude. I honestly, that game, there's just nothing like it. Devil May Cry 5, it's more traditional in the sense that it's kind of like a cool game. Like, I know that's a very generic word, but it's really just like, that's what it tries to be. It just tries to be cool. Bayonetta doesn't try to be cool. Bayonetta just tries to be a freaking Queen song, you know, in video game form. It's like literally Bohemian Rhapsody, you know, in video game form. Yeah, they should put that on the back of the box. You know? So in short, I would say it all depends on your taste, but I would go for Bayonetta simply because you are not going to see anything else like it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so there you go. So Arnie,
cool.
What's your question?
I just wanted to know, because I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but is Virgil in the game at all?
I can either confirm or deny. But yes.
He's just my favorite character, so that's why I want to know. But it sounds like V sort of fills in that gap as like the longer range sort of guy.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny because V, when I first saw him on the concept art, not the concept art, on like the still like the screenshots or whatever for the game, I thought that he was gonna be a very broody character, and yes, he's broody.
Yeah, but
he's also a little bit more. He's actually pretty interesting, and his interactions with his wisecracking crow are very fun. So,
cool.
You know, so the crow, for example, is like, V, you better get your ass out of here. We're gonna get fucked. You know, things like that. You know, so you don't expect that. So
gotcha.
Yeah, Virgil is in the game, of course. Yeah, it's not a big spoiler. You know, I think we all expected it, but yeah, he's in the game. In what capacity, I can't tell you.
Oh, gotcha.
So because Virgil was actually in Devil May Cry 1. People don't realize that, but he's the demon that you fight. You know, that kind of like haunts you. You know, throughout the game. It's actually Virgil.
Okay.
So, anyways.
So, are you now a Xbox One X partisan? Like, do you think you'll lean more towards Xbox?
No, you know, it depends. I was gonna answer that in a voice cracking way,
okay.
but no. It really, I'm gonna answer it seriously now.
Yeah.
It depends. If I see a game that's multi-platform and I can get it on the Xbox for cheaper, you know, I might just go with the Xbox One version because, for example, Sekiro might play much better on the Xbox One X.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 2 might have better frame rate, better resolution on the Xbox One X. You know, I can play at 4K. You know, if it's multi-platform and I have and I don't have a preference over one or the other, I might play it on the Xbox One X.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool.
So what else have you been playing?
Lightning Force.
Ooh.
Lightning Force.
Lightning Force.
Otherwise known by its real name, Thunder Force 4.
Thank you.
I have been playing it on the Sega Ages collection on the Switch.
Okay.
And by the way, dude, you know, hats off to Sega for, you know, doing the Sega Ages, you know, releases because they're so terrifically well done.
Yeah.
They have so many options on, you know, how you play your game. Like, do you want smoothing over your pixels if you're a monster? Do you want, you know, scan lines with smoothing or without smoothing? Do you want like a vintage kind of filter which makes it look like a CRT? Do you want to remap your controllers? Do you want to have replays, you know, so that you can show your friends, you know, when that time you beat Thunder Force 4 with just one, you know, credit? You know, things like that. And it's just, it's a very good reproduction, you know, and it's interesting because at first when I played it, I put it on, it said Lightning Force. And I was like, oh man, I was hoping this would be like Thunder Force 4. And then as soon as I died for the first time, you know, game over, they're like, oh, you have just unlocked the Japanese version. So now you can play it as Thunder Force 4. So I went over again. And guys listening to this, you know, in your car or wherever you may listen to podcasts, if you have not listened to the intro of Thunder Force 4, you only have to go on Paul's Instagram account, you know, maybe about a year back, where he was talking about his favorite soundtracks. And literally, the Thunder Force 4 intro is just there, and Paul just screams at the end of it, fuck yes. That's exactly, playing Thunder Force 4 is that in a nutshell. It's just fuck yes, in a nutshell, basically. Because the soundtrack to that game is stellar.
Yeah.
I would even say that right next to Streets of Rage 1 and 2, definitely top 3 Genesis. Absolutely top 3
I don't
Genesis.
disagree at all.
There is... Show me some other game, and you may be able to make a decent argument for it, but damn it, Thunder Force 4 and just Metal Squad. If you have any doubts, about anyone, arguing whether video game music is good or not, just put on Metal Squad. And they're not even going to be able to make that argument because they just shit their pants, and
they just die and become your robotic arm.
Exactly. So, yeah, and listen, I'm a big fan of Shmups, but I recently developed carpal tunnel syndrome. So, Shmups are not the genre that I should be playing most of. But that game, I could just play it just for the music. It's that good. Which is also the reason why I would just pop in Streets of Rage 2. I would just say, hey, I want to listen to some awesome Yusuke Shiro music. And I also get to punch some motherfuckers in the face while we're at it. It's all well and good. But Thunder Force 4 has something that I really dig, and I like it when shmups do this, which is that it allows you to choose the first 4 levels in whatever order you play. And one of the issues with shmups is that you have to be really good at them. So, for example, Gradius 5... I love Gradius 5, but I have not gotten very far in Gradius 5 because I'm not very good at Gradius 5.
Yeah.
So to be able to die and then just explore different levels, it allows you to not get bored and have to replay every level over and over again, the same level over and over again until you get better. It allows you to mix and match. And it keeps the 4 levels feeling fresh. It's almost like what Mega Man does, where it's like, you can see which level is the most accessible for you in order to become better at the game. And that's what I did yesterday. I was playing it yesterday and I tried the 4 different variations of levels, probably got my ass handed to me, but I started getting, the mechanics of it, and I started feeling a lot more comfortable with the mechanics. And for example, one of the things about Thunder Force 4 is that you can switch between weapons, and the base weapons is one that shoots frontally, and the alternate is one that shoots from forward and then back. So you can, one of the things about Thunder Force is that enemies come from all over. It's not like they just come from the right. And then there are a bunch of other types of weapons, but you can switch them, on the fly. And so getting used to that takes you a little bit of time. And the other part that you need to get used to is just the speed changes. So you can actually change into 4 different speeds with your ship. So, you can switch it to like 25% if you want to have more precise controls. Let's say that you're maneuvering around a very big boss. So it's a game that's very deeply customizable. And it's almost like, for 1993 or whatever the time it was that it came out in, it's almost like Technosoft as a developer were trying to come up with like a simulation of sorts about what it would be like to fly this ship. This very, very awesome ship that, has a bunch of different mechanics and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's a very impressive game even to this day. I guess my only fault with it is that a lot of the parallax scrolling and the different layers in the graphics, can be a little bit tricky because, you can miss a lot of the pixels, in the parallax scrolling. So you need to, for example, one of the levels is in a desert and there's a sandstorm, and, the sandstorm kind of obscures, a lot of the pixels. So you have to be very, attentive, to different variations in the pixels, because that might be an actual bullet or an enemy or something like that. So that's a little bit annoying.
That sandstorm level in particular is a giant pain in the ass. It's commonly known for a level that's so early in the game. It's uncommonly difficult, and the boss on it is, oh my god, he's the worst. Yeah.
But I did, it's a game that, because of that change in levels, that selection of levels, it allows you to really ease into it. And so, for example, for me, the level that I felt most comfortable with was like the sky level where you're flying over the water as well. And, and dude, it just felt so amazing when you were finally kind of mastering all the different elements of your ship. You were using the blade weapon, etc. And it just makes you feel really badass when you're finally getting everything together. And, and plus, once a boss comes in, the kick-ass metal music starts, and you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, man, it's so good.
Yeah, so I don't know. I know you're a big Thunder Force 4 fan, Paul, so I'll let you speak to it a little bit more.
No, dude, it's one of the all-time greats. It might. I'm not gonna say it's like the greatest shoot 'em up because that's very subjective, and Radiant Silvergun exists.
Yeah.
But it is right up there. Like for me, it's like top 3. And Technosoft, like, props to them for taking a musical track like Metal Squad, which is just fantastic, and treating it almost like a reward. Because you hear Metal Squad for the first time on level 8, and there's 10 levels in the game. And level 8 is basically like a boss rush, right? There's all these mini bosses that you've never seen before. Like, it's not like they take bosses from earlier in the game, and then you fight them again. No, it's like all original bosses, like all mini bosses, and there's Metal Squad playing, and it feels fucking epic. Like, when you reach there, like, you really feel like, holy shit, this is awesome. And it is. Like,
well, I must imagine as a kid, Paul, I don't know when you first played it, but as a teenager, if you played around that time, you must have been completely blown away. It's like, my God.
Yeah, dude, I was like 18, 19, around that time when I played it. And like, it was amazing, dude. Like, it's such a great game. The music is, and it's not just like the heavy metal stuff. Like the heavy metal stuff, Technosoft masters great. Yeah. But there's a lot of different types of musical tracks in that game. They do a lot of variation.
There's a lot of variation.
And there are no duds.
No,
like they're all great.
Yeah, and there's like, melody based tracks, there is like more like suspenseful tracks. And the thing is, I recently just got the data disc release of the soundtrack on vinyl, which when I saw that, I was just like, I jumped on it right away.
Yeah.
But there's actually like an hour and 40 minutes worth of music in Thunder Force 4. And like 8 of those, like there's 8 tracks that were just completely unused. And those tracks were also amazing. So it's like there are 8 tracks that they just decided, this one is not going to pass muster, but they're still awesome. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to just kind of like putting in that vinyl and just having my neighbors knock down my door and saying, hey, I just shed my pants. What's going on? Thunder Force 4. And I'm also thinking about getting, in order to support Sega Ages, I'm also thinking about getting Phantasy Star 1. Because it has save states and stuff. And so it would be ideal to play Phantasy Star 1 on the Switch.
Yeah, Sega is really good about pushing their older stuff to newer audiences. And I really appreciate that. Like, all these Sega collections and the Sonic Genesis collection and all this stuff are just really nice ways for people who haven't played these games to be able to fairly easily and accessibly. Like, I feel like they're very active in trying to keep their classics like very accessible at all times.
But they keep pushing Alex Kidd, and I don't know why. Because that game is terrible. Alex Kidd in Miracle World is not a good game.
No way, man. The first one, Alex Kidd in Miracle World. I mean, look, obviously I've got rose-tinted glasses here. I love
you're like Elton John right now. You have like the most
now the subsequent entries, not so great.
Yeah.
But that first one is a classic.
Yeah.
Alex Kidd in Shinobi World, Alex Kidd in
Cyber World? Is that what
Cyber World, I think, as well.
Yeah, High Tech World.
High Tech World, that's what it is.
Dude, the High Tech World is one of the most bizarre games you'll ever see. I'll have to talk about it another time. It is so weird.
But let me just finish out the Sega Ages talk with saying that I really appreciate what Sega's doing, because, for example, whenever they release a Yakuza game, all the Yakuza games include a survey, you know, and that survey allows you to say, you know, what you're most interested in, what you thought about the game, what you thought about the localization, and it gives like actual feedback to the publishers and the developers, you know, about what they need to be focusing on.
Yeah.
And Sega Ages is the same thing. Like, it tells me, you know, it tells me, you know, what do you think about the localization? Do you think the presentation was good? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, what are the consoles that you're thinking about getting? And then it asked me one question, which I thought about it for maybe like 5 seconds, and said, if you could only bring one game, and seriously, it has this in parentheses, like seriously, just one game, you know, to Sega Ages, which one would it be? And
Nice.
It took me like 5 seconds, and I was like, Panzer Dragoon Saga. You know, it's like, there's no question, no freaking question that Panzer Dragoon Saga, you know, deserves a Sega Ages release. That game is way too, you know, ignored by Sega. But I just love the fact that Sega is doing all these things. But yeah, in terms of, if we want to finish out with things that I've been playing, I mean, we can just finish it up pretty quickly. As you guys know, I've been playing a lot of, you know, games that were released on the Japanese PlayStation Store, but were not released here. And this includes a lot of rare collector's items. So, for example, I've been playing a lot of G Darius, which I don't know if you guys have played G Darius. G Darius is amazing. I consider it to be amazing. I don't know if you share the same sentiment, Paul, but as I was playing this game, I had the same feeling I had with Thunder Force 4, where I was like, this is brilliant. You know, because the gimmick to G Darius, or Darius as a whole, is that you can catch the enemies and kind of indoctrinate them and use them as weapons. And with G Darius, you can almost anything besides big bosses, you can, you know, adopt and you can capture.
Interesting.
So it just makes for a very, you know, a very dynamic play style. And the thing also about G Darius is that it has the same kind of path as, let's say, a game like Outrun, where if you go up or you go down, you know, it might lead you down a different route. And so that the linearity of the game is almost triangular, where you have a triangle and you can go either up, you can go through the middle, or you can go down, and the levels completely change depending upon what path you take. So it makes a lot of variations. It makes for a lot of variations. And there are like levels where like they're prehistoric. And also the thing about Darius is that all of the enemies are fish. So
this was my issue with it way back when. So it was very hard to take it seriously.
If you like sushi, it might be great for you. If you don't like sushi, this game might be a nightmare. You know, it's all mechanical fish, basically. All of the enemies are like mechanical fish. But like there are levels like in prehistoric eras, and it's just bonkers, man.
Is G Darius the one where like the arcade cabinet is like 4 screens long or something?
It might be. It might be.
It is.
It might be. Yeah.
That game looks insane.
Because that was the thing with Darius. I mean, Taito, who, man, I mean, they first came out with Space Invaders, but then they did amazing, you know, franchises like Darius.
Yeah.
You know, Darius, the thing about the arcade cabinet, it was that it was like 2 screens or 3 screens, or I don't even know what.
Yeah.
But I think with G Darius, I think it was like 4 screens. So it made for like this hyper extended, you know, perspective. But moving on from G Darius, I also played the Ray Storm and Ray Crisis releases, and I actually think that's what caused my carpal tunnel, to be perfectly frank. So, you know, I may not be able to play those again. Ray Storm, a lot better than Ray Crisis. I really didn't fancy Ray Crisis. It's kind of a prequel, and it all takes place in the mind of a computer that eventually turns into the enemy in Ray Storm. Paul, you and I played Ray Storm when you were here in New York, and Ray Storm is fantastic. I love that game as well. The gimmick with the Ray games is that you have this reticle. Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah.
Reticle?
You sure did.
Yeah. And the reticle is in front of you, and as soon as you hover the reticle over enemies, it kind of locks onto them, and so you can shoot like homing missiles. So the trick to that Shmup series is that you have to, you know, weigh the risk and reward of getting up close and personal with the enemy so that you can shoot your homing missiles. So because of that, it tends to be very frantic, and, you know, it's not bullet helly, for the most part, which
Yeah.
I don't care much for the bullet hell genre.
Yeah, me neither, sadly.
Yeah, I'm much more of a fan of like well-designed games rather than just, hey, we're just throwing a bunch of fucking bullets at you.
I like them for the spectacle, but not as like I'm not good at them. So
yeah, but if the spectacle is just a bunch of dots, I mean, to me that's not spectacle. That's just a bunch of dots.
Sometimes they have like really crazily designed like giant bosses and stuff like that.
And then just go ahead.
It can be good in small doses.
Yeah. Or if you have something like Garegga, which is bullet hell, but it has the dual polarity, mechanism, which it makes a complete difference.
But that just hurts my brain.
Yeah. But just to round that out, because this has been a Shmup talk. I play Thunder Force 5 as well.
Oh, nice.
Thunder Force 5,
cool.
Not as great as Thunder Force 4 by a long, long mile.
That one came out on the PS2,
PS1.
PS1.
It's like a Saturn, actually.
Sega.
Well, it was a Saturn game first, but not in North America.
And then it was converted to the PS1 as Perfect System or something like that with the subtitle.
Correct. Yeah.
But in North America, we only got the PS1 version, which is by all accounts an inferior version. It's good, but with this game, I would even say it's more of a problem, to be able to spot the polygons, and the bullets, because the graphics just haven't aged well at all.
Gotcha.
And so I can't really tell you as much about the music. I certainly know Thunder Force 4. But it's okay, but it definitely does feel like a game that does not really innovate enough on what Thunder Force 4 brought, and when you take a look at it compared to G-Darius or even Raystorm, it feels a lot less dynamic. Because at the end of the day, the Thunder Force games are pretty traditional in terms of shmups. They don't really do a lot of weird gimmicky things,
Yeah.
It's just, you have a number of weapons, you can switch between weapons, and you have enemies coming from all over. That's basically it. And you have awesome music. That's Thunder Force at its core. Whereas other games, they all have like a sort of gimmick, and so for the PS1 era, a lot of the games just suffer from this just very dated art style because of the polygonal graphics. And Thunder Force 4 or 5, it's one of those that really did not, age gracefully.
Yeah.
I don't know if you played it, Paul.
I agree. What's that?
I don't know if you played Thunder Force 5, Paul.
Oh yeah, 100%. I've got it for the Saturn. And it's, you know what, dude? Here's the thing. It's a good game. Right? There's nothing wrong with it. I thought it was fun. They introduced a new weapon that was really cool. But the thing is, when you're comparing it to Thunder Force 4, it's never gonna happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It came, it's from that PS1 era where, developers weren't quite 100% comfortable with using polygonal graphics and how to apply them.
And it has that wavy look. It has that wavy PS1 look,
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I played it and it was fun, and I played it like last year and it was fun. So, it's not the best, but it's probably better than a lot of like the more recent kind of copycat bullet hell shoot 'em up games that have been coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, man, that's what I have been playing, guys. A lot of shmups, and now I'm handicapped. And it just so happens that I type for a living. So that has presented issues. So thank you, shmups. I'm actually wearing one of those wrist guard things now.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I look very, very fashionable right now.
You should get one of those like Nintendo branded fingerless gloves that they gave out to people who hurt themselves while playing Mario Party.
Yeah. No, I'm just gonna write Raystorm on my wrist guard. That's what happened to it. Anyways,
right, well,
you guys want to take a break?
Yeah. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll talk about what I've been playing.
All right.
All right, everyone, and we're back. And so, as promised, I'll talk about what I've been playing lately. And this is bizarre. Like, this is turning into the episode that I would have wanted to hear when I was like 13 years old. No, for real, because this is going to be like the shoot 'em up / RPG episode.
Oh, hell yeah.
With like a light dusting of Devil May Cry. You know what I'm saying? And Ozzy, it's awesome that you've been playing Thunder Force 4 and Thunder Force 5. I just finished Thunder Force 6.
Look at that.
Oh, and I was just about to ask you about Thunder Force 6.
And that one did come out on the PS2, correct?
Yeah, that one PS2 Japan only.
Oh.
Have we just done a Technosoft episode?
You know, we almost kind of have just done a Technosoft episode.
Is that the last entry in the series?
Correct.
I think so, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it came out in 07, right?
Yeah, I think it was around that time.
Yeah. But a good game by all accounts from what I hear.
You know what, man? It's a great game. Like, here's the thing. It really all depends on who you are and what you're kind of expecting out of your shoot 'em up experience. Here's the thing. It's not a hard game, right? Like, I finished it. It only took me like a couple days of, you know, kind of banging my head against that shoot 'em up wall.
Yeah.
And I'm not bad at those games. I'm not great either, but you know, I'm a reasonable shoot 'em up player. I play them a lot. And it didn't take me very long to finish Thunder Force 6 at all. And it helps, right? It helps that it's not like brutally difficult. It's pretty traditional. There are some light dusting of bullet hell parts in there, but it's very traditional. And most importantly, it's really like, it's very much the last game in the series. It's very fan servicey. So there are a lot of callbacks to Thunder Force 3, Thunder Force 4, and 5 that are really cool. And when you see them, you know, if you're a fan of the series, it's very, very rewarding to play.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Like, you know, the music's not as good as 4, right? The graphics are a little bit better than 5. The gameplay is as solid as you'd expect. You can change weapons on the fly, which is a trademark of the series. And frankly, like, if you can't change weapons on the fly in your shoot 'em up these days, like, I don't really have that much interest in playing it. Like, it is such a great mechanic to have, you know.
Yeah, it's
like,
versatile. It allows you to tailor your playstyle to however, you know, you work best.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, you know, a game like Radiant Silvergun, you can do that. Caladrius and Caladrius Blaze, you can do that. You can change weapons on the fly. A game like Darius Burst, the latest Darius game, you can't. But that game's awesome for different reasons.
Yeah.
Like, they managed to kind of overcome that.
Well, here's the
mechanical
thing,
fish.
too.
That's all.
Is that here's my thing with shoot 'em ups is that I agree. Like, I think that being able to change weapons should just be default by now. Because I think the other thing is, at least in my experience, the other sort of big mechanic is to, like, pick up the weapons and then, like, pick up the same color one to sort of upgrade it. But the thing I don't like about that is that at some point, when you've upgraded your weapon enough, power-ups become enemies, you know? Like, oh shit, I've got, like, the red one all the way up. This is the one that I like. There's a blue one. Now I have to, like, you know, do everything I can to avoid it because I don't want to be reset to, like, the shitty weapon that I don't want. So I think,
this is what happened in Raiden 5, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it drove me nuts, dude.
Yes. That's the problem, is that it sort of... the reason I like being able to switch weapons is because you're not sort of hamstrung to one thing until you die, and then you can try something new. You can sort of experiment as you go.
Yeah. And there's different weapons for different situations to kind of ease you through, you know what I mean? Like, in Thunder Force, like, the default sort of quote-unquote best weapon is the Hunter.
Okay.
Because it homes and you can focus on dodging bullets. Obviously, the trade-off is that it's not very powerful, and sometimes the homing doesn't quite work, like on bosses where you need to, like, shoot, like, a really pinpoint area.
Yeah.
But there is a use for most of the weapons in Thunder Force. It's just that you generally will use... you know what? Actually, in Thunder Force 6, that's not the case. Hunter's been kind of... it's not that it's been nerfed, it's that the all-way laser is suddenly really good. That was the weapon introduced in Thunder Force 5.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so, but like, even if it's just between all-way and hunter, if those are the only two weapons you have, I'm happy just to be able to switch.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Yeah.
and let me just mention that, Arnie, I'm going to take that one step further. Not only are the power-ups that come by your enemies because you have to avoid them, but there are also some games, and this kind of seeped through other game series as well, that the more power-ups you have, the more difficult the game becomes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So,
the Battle Garegga effect.
Battle Garegga, the more weapons you have, it's going to turn basically impossible. So the trick to the game is trying to beat it with as few power-ups as possible. Because it just adjusts to that.
Which I feel like makes it kind of boring, doesn't it?
No. It just makes it very nerve-wracking.
Oh, okay. Because I was just like, in the sense that like...
Also very... Sorry, Arnie.
No, I was just going to say, because in my mind, I'm like a sucker for, I want to have all the power-ups and all the options and be able to shoot like 20 different ways and have all this crazy stuff going on. Like, that's
and
part
you
of
can have that, but you better be good.
Yeah, I know.
But you better be
so
damn
like
good.
so like a shmup that forces me to not do that is like, I don't know, it goes against like my base instinct.
Look, dude, Battle Garegga is very controversial. It's extremely controversial in the shmup community because people really, many did not take to that. And it was kind of made for the speedrunners. It was made for the elite. It's a very shmup elitist game. Like if you're not good at it, then don't even bother.
Gotcha.
Dude, I hated it when it first came out. Like, I played it on the Saturn way back when, and I was like, this is bullshit. Like, this game is impossible. And it's also because I didn't know about the scaling difficulty mechanic in it.
Yeah.
So like, if you don't know about it beforehand and you're just gobbling up all the power-ups like you would in any other shoot 'em up game, good fucking luck, man. Like, it takes a little while. Like, I don't see how there was any way I could have known about that mechanic.
Yeah.
It was just like banging my head against the wall.
Yeah. But, I really want Thunder Force 6. And fun fact, Thunder Force 6 was actually designed by a former Treasure guy. So it was done by a guy that worked on Astro Boy, the Omega Factor, and a few other like super Gunstar heroes, Gunstar superheroes. Correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a Treasure connection as well, and we all know that we love Treasure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's a shame that it never came out on the US or Europe. I have to see if it's available on the Japanese PlayStation Store, because if it is, I'm grabbing that today.
You absolutely have to, and I'm telling you, man, you'll enjoy it. Like because like I said, it's not that hard. And it's not a very long game either. Like I don't know, half an hour or something like that. So it's a very compact game. It's fun for what it is.
Yeah.
And if you've played the previous entries, you'll have even more fun.
And let me ask you something, because one of the issues that I have, the PS2 was kind of the swan song for shmups, because then we had the PS3 era and Xbox 360 era, which, yes, there were a lot of cave shooters, but I'm not particularly fond of the cave style of shooters, which again, they're the ones that really popularized the shmup with Donpachi and Dadanpachi. Wow, we're throwing out so many words that to anyone that doesn't know shmups, they're just like, what the hell are they saying? If we had to like put subtitles and there was like something like issuing subtitles, they would have been like, I just give up. But one of the issues that I had with the PS2 era is similar to the PS1 era, where the graphics were all polygonal and that presented issues. And it just didn't age well. The PS2 era, the graphics were good, but one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of the graphics are washed out in a way. Yes. And the colors seem like a little bit washed out. That's a problem that I saw with R-Type. It's a problem that I saw with Gradius to some extent, Gradius 5. But do you think that that's also the case for Thunder Force 6, Paul?
Yeah, 100%. Sadly, it's not a terribly colorful game. It's very much on the dark side. So if you go straight from playing Thunder Force 4 with like the sky level and the parallax and so on,
very colorful.
Very colorful. And then you go to 6, not quite the same. like it's too bad in that regard. There are some levels where I'm like, playing Thunder Force 6, there were definitely a couple of parts where I just could not, or I had a very hard time discerning the bullets from other objects and background, just because the colors weren't, they didn't contrast enough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It also happened with Sylphid, The Lost Planet, which is another treasure joint. Yeah, I mean, pretty much the PS2 era, I would say just generally, man. I mean, games have like a washed out look. PS2 games have like a little bit of a washed out look.
But the thing is, like, with Thunder Force 6, though, your eyes will adjust to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's difficult at first, and I was a little bit frustrated at first. But after I stuck with it, I was like, okay, I kind of know what to look for now. And then once you know what to look for, it becomes more enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, I do need to get it. Let me ask you a question. I guess, Paul, since you're the shmup expert amongst us, if you had to recommend one shmup for Genesis, one for Saturn or PS1, and one for PS2, which ones would it be?
Geez,
Thunder
man.
Force
to someone that's coming in brand
Force
new,
5.
someone that's
You know what? Here's the thing, right? If it's somebody coming in brand new and you want a Sega Genesis shoot 'em up that you're gonna have fun with, then you play Thunder Force 3. Because the thing about Thunder Force 3, and a lot of people cite it as their favorite, in spite of the existence of 4, which is amazing, but 3 is accessible. Like, that's the key, right? Like, you can sit down with 3 and play it every day for a week, for like an hour or whatever. By the end of the week, you will beat it. Yeah. Right? You're not going to be frustrated with it. It's a great game. It has the same mechanics. The music's not as good. It's good, but Thunder Force 4 is superlative. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'd recommend Thunder Force 3, actually, if you're completely new and you want a good one for the Sega Genesis. Like Super NES, it's a toss-up between Space Megaforce and Axelay. I'd actually probably go Space Megaforce, which is basically a Lest 2.
So not Phalanx?
Oh, dude, come on, man. Come on. You're killing me.
It's funny because I hear a lot about Space Megaforce, and I don't hear as much about Axelay.
It's funny. It's actually, for me, it's the other way around.
Really?
I hear a lot of people mention Axelay, and hardly anybody mentions Space Megaforce.
Same for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, I could just be cruel and just be like, oh, you should just start with Agane. That's...
But I mean, you can emulate all these things anyway, right?
Yeah.
But Compile did Space Megaforce, and they did like Blazing Lasers for the TurboGrafx, Power Strike for the Sega Master System.
Yep.
Like back then, Compile was king of the hill for the shoot 'em up genre. Like they were top of the game.
Yeah, and a lot of the Compile people eventually ended up going into Cave.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's a developer that kind of spread out its seeds all over the various different developers that eventually ended up taking up Shmups, and then Wish in turn ended up going bankrupt.
Sadly. But yeah, I mean, as far as Sega Saturn is concerned, like, it's the thing about the Sega Saturn is that there just aren't that many, at least for the North American. Like, my favorite North American...
You have to go Japan, though. You have to go Japan.
You have to go to Japan, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, ooh, man, it's so tough because, like, there's so many... In Japan, there's so many good ones, man. Like, nobody's ever heard of Soku Gurentai, but, like, I love that game. Very difficult title to pronounce, and I can't even describe it. I mean, you can also say Battle Garegga. Like, a lot of people will stand for Battle Garegga.
Yeah.
It was so innovative at the time and so controversial. Like, anybody who knows shoot 'em ups knows that game and has an opinion on it.
Well, and there's also Radiant, man. There's also Radiant Silvergun. Like,
yeah,
Radiant Silvergun exists. I mean, that's
Ozzy. If you were sitting right next to me, you would have to punch me in the face for not immediately mentioning Radiant Silvergun. What in the fuck? Obviously, Radiant Silvergun is the Saturn shoot 'em up that you have to play. Jesus Christ, man.
What the hell's
I'm
wrong
on
with
a
you, Paul?
podcast? Oh my god. My cred just got destroyed. How did I forget?
Have you played
Battle
favorite
Garegga
one.
over Radiant Silvergun, Paul. What the?
What do you
flying
think?
fuck?
I need to be fired.
Since
What
we're throwing things at
Paul, you're fired.
I don't
Paul,
think
you're
this
hired.
is a traditional shooter. I think it's more of a railgun shooter. But have you played Elemental Gearbolt, and what do you think?
Elemental Gearbolt is a light gun game, isn't it?
I thought it was more like
it's a light gun game, dude.
Is it? I thought it was more like a Panzer Dragoon sort of on rails thing.
Nah, dude, light gun.
It's a light gun game, dude.
What am I thinking?
And actually, the most expensive collector's item for
that
the PS1
I've seen. But I was
is the gun con, the golden gun con.
Yes, but now I don't know what I was thinking of. I was thinking of something.
No, you were thinking of Elemental Gearbolt.
You were just wrong, dude.
You were just wrong.
I mean, I am wrong all the time. Legitimately 100% of the time. So, sure.
Yeah, Paul, so I had to pick up Thunder Force 6. And is it easier than Gradius 5?
Having not played Gradius 5, I couldn't tell you, but I will tell you just generally. Hey man, you can't play them all.
Dude, it's Treasure, it's Gradius. No.
I know. Look, it's on my like watch list on eBay for when it comes out, either at auction or a reasonable price.
Dude,
like
it's
$9.99
on the PS3, man. It's like you could just pick it up like for $10.
But I like having the original.
Yes, okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. What else have you been playing, man?
Oh man, I can't believe I missed Radiant Silvergun. I even mentioned it earlier in the episode. Jesus, I'm gonna be thinking about this all day, man. God damn it. Anyhow,
don't make yourself up too much.
Oh, it's what a gross. Anyway, okay. I've also, as you guys are aware, I've been playing Etrian Odyssey Nexus.
Oh yeah,
Paul playing Etrian Odyssey.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's I've never played this game before.
What's
In fact,
the verdict?
Etrian Odyssey Nexus actually is what made me almost buy Summon Night 6.
Oh,
because my logic was that if an RPG has 6 entries, then it must be really good at the thing that it does. Because
like Police Academy.
Oh, dude. I mean, yes, but
this is going off the rails.
Etrian Odyssey Nexus.
I mean, there is something to be said about that sort of logic. You know what I mean? My concern always is if I'm hearing about a game, or like if a game is finally getting like a bigger-ish release by the 6th entry, my concern is always that I'm going to pop this game in and I'm going to have no idea what the fuck is going on because there's going to be like continuation of some kind.
I am so glad you're bringing this up because Etrian Odyssey Nexus pulls off this miraculous feat, which is that it is simultaneously a huge thank you and, kind of fan service for fans of the series who have been with it for a long time.
Yeah.
While simultaneously being a fantastic entry point for beginners.
Interesting.
It's incredible that it manages to do that. The way it manages to do that is that it brings in character classes. It takes 3 different character classes from each of the previous 5 entries. Or is it 4? It's 3 from some, 4 from another, because there's like 19 total.
Gotcha.
And introduces only 1 new class. So the amount of classes you can pick from is like twice as much as any other Etrian Odyssey game. And you get like all these different flavors of play styles to play through. It's like, for beginners, I think it's fantastic. And for long-time fans of the series, goddamn, dude, this game is, you can feel the love, like you can feel the love that the developers put into it. They included, there's just more of everything, first of all, which in this case is actually good. Like one of the problems, if you could call it a problem, with previous entries in the series is that there's generally 25 levels in a labyrinth, and there's like one particular style, that one lasts 5 levels. Then you move on to the next style, that one lasts 5 levels. And there's like 5 total styles, right? What Etrian Odyssey does is it increases the amount of labyrinths, but makes them shorter. So you don't get kind of burned out on the same background, same music, and so on, right? There are some in the game that last 5 floors, like the traditional ones, but there are a whole bunch of other ones that are only 1 or 2 or 3.
Okay.
And in those, what they do is that they have callbacks to the previous games. Like some of the levels are from previous games, but they have surprises thrown in, like surprise bosses and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And the most important thing, like the thing that really touches my heart, is that they bring back all the battle music from all the previous Etrian Odyssey games, except for 5. I should say they bring back battle music from the first 4, and a lot of it is remixed, like the remixed versions from Etrian Odyssey Untold on the 3DS.
Yeah.
They sound fantastic. Like, I never ever got tired of Etrian Odyssey battle music before. Now, even
it's impossible,
less.
Basically.
It's impossible.
And by the way, it's all Yuzo Koshiro music, so...
It's all Yuzo Koshiro. Guys, I can't tell you, man, like, the music makes these games. Like, the thing about Etrian Odyssey is that it serves a very specific group of game players. If you like turn-based RPGs with complex and rewarding combat and excellent music and virtually no story, this is the ultimate version of that kind of game.
Yeah. Which in theory, you would think the Venn diagram of people that are like, love RPGs, want very little story. The overlap of that, you would think, is very small.
But it's large enough to support the series for, what, 8 entries?
Yep.
So, yeah, like... And Nexus is really just kind of like the ultimate version of it. I've been enjoying it so much because of all the callbacks, because the combat is more rewarding than ever. Like because you have access to all these different classes and all these different play styles, like you'll fight one boss and the party that you're using will be garbage against that boss. So you have to go back to headquarters, look at what other characters you have, and kind of mix and match all the different play styles to like suit, how to beat this particular boss. And there's just a lot of fun problem solving in that way. And your characters can be like, you have your 19 different classes. There's actually a secret class too. So there's really 20, but 19 that are easily accessible. And even within those classes, like your protector will have a different kind of play style. Your Zodiac will have a different kind of play style, depending on how you branch their skill trees.
Yeah.
So, like, the replay value is just... It was already insane for Etrian Odyssey. Like, the replay value in these games is bonkers. And then when you add in, Nexus with all the different classes, all the different labyrinths, like, there's just so much to enjoy there. So, if this is your kind of game, if you like Etrian Odyssey, if you've been wondering... Should I get Nexus because I've played this game 5 times already? The answer is emphatically yes. Do it.
So let me ask you, Paul, because I know that Etrian Odyssey, you play through a first-person view, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So do you find that maybe your love for Phantasy Star, had some influence on liking Etrian Odyssey?
It's hard to say. Like, the thing is that it's not so much the Phantasy Star callbacks that make it good, though. Like, Phantasy Star was an 8-bit RPG. The combat, not complicated.
Yeah.
Right? Attack, magic, that's it. The music, good. Etrian Odyssey is a completely different beast. Yes, it's a 3D dungeon crawler, and in that regard, it's similar to Phantasy Star, but Etrian Odyssey has no overworld. It is just dungeons.
Yeah.
And the thing that makes it good is the combination of combat and music. You never get tired of either one. When you're fighting random battles in Etrian Odyssey, they're not easy. Now, they're not terribly difficult either, but they're always engaging. They manage to straddle a line where you do have to, actually put effort in and use magic, use techniques. You don't just spam attack to beat enemies, right? And because the music is so good, you just never get tired of it. You can't wait to hear it again.
Yeah.
It keeps propelling you forward.
Yeah. It makes sense that you like this game, because I feel like, especially as I've gotten to know you and know more of what you like, it sort of scratches the RPG itch, and it also fills that sort of Final Fantasy Tactics void of min-maxing classes, like mixing parties together, sort of approaching problems from different ways every time, that sort of stuff that I know you like also.
Yep.
So this is the peanut butter jelly sandwich that you've always wanted.
It pretty much is, right? Like, and I know there are other people like me out there.
Yeah.
For them and for me, this is this is my favorite handheld RPG series ever.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no doubt about it. And for the amount that I've played it, it is even possible that it's my favorite RPG series ever.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm just playing Nexus, and all I feel is love, man. It's just, like, I'm just playing it, I'm like, oh, I love this game.
Yeah.
I love this game.
Well, and I think that you made an excellent point, is like, it's good that it's even this far into the series, they've still made a game that's accessible to people who have never played one of these games before. Because it's true, like, and I think it's sort of a east-west thing sometimes, where I feel like for video games especially, if you have a long-running franchise, I feel like you're sort of boxed into either having to make each game its own story and be completely separate, or sort of finagling it where you don't necessarily need to know what happened before to understand what's happening now. Because I think what tends to happen, and I think God of War is probably a good example of this, is that when you have 1 and 2, you're, okay, this is cool. By the time you get to what even is like the last one, like Descendants or something, before they made this soft reboot on PS4, like, they had like 6 or 7 entries, and if you're trying to play that last one without knowing what happened before, you're like, what is even happening right now? Like, you lose so much in not, sort of taking that journey with the character.
Exactly, yeah. And Etrian Odyssey, they just do away with all that just because there's no story, really, I mean, there is a story, right? Like, there has to be something kind of propelling the characters forward, but there is effectively no real story in each of the games, right? And that's great. Like, that's fine, because you know what? The stories in these games often suck.
Yeah. That's fair.
And often I just don't need them. Often all I want to do is fight and listen to great music.
Yeah.
And that's what happens here. So, yeah, man, I can't get enough of it.
How long have you played? How much time have you put into it right now?
Oh, dude, it's so bad. It's so bad. Oh my god. I had a rule after playing Disgaea 3 a long time ago, because Disgaea 3 I played for like 200 hours or something. Well,
that's the one that was my first Disgaea game I'd ever played, and by like hour 50 I was like, is it done yet? Like, are we? Yeah. And it just keeps going forever.
Oh, dude, it can go infinite, right? And so I had to institute a rule, because I'm like, I can't do this again. 100 hours. 100 hours is the rule. If a game is going to take me more than 100 hours, then I'm just going to stop and move on to the next one. But I love Etrian Odyssey so much that I'm now at 130 and I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just like, fuck it. Whatever. I'm just going to play it. I'm just going to enjoy it.
Yeah. Just play things that you have fun with, man. I mean,
that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah. Whatever.
So we got to wrap it up here. But one more quick hit. I just wanted to mention to you guys, and thus our listeners, in preparation for the show, I had to play something other than Etrian Odyssey. So, yesterday I finally popped in Astro Bot Rescue Mission for the PSVR. And, you know what, man? All those positive reviews, definitely correct.
Oof.
Like, it is a really cool game. And you know what? In fact, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. The next time we do the What Have You Been Playing, I will go into more detail on Astro Bot. And because I've only played like through the first world, and there's maybe like, I don't know, 8 of them or something like that. And I'll have a more like thorough review for you guys next time. I think that'll be a better idea than just mentioning it right now and saying, hey, good game, bye-bye.
All right, well, I'll have to pick it up, whenever I pick up PSVR again.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. It's just really cool. And I'll get into the detail another time.
Okay.
So, anyhow, everybody, as usual, thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Arnie, Ozzy, as always, super fun chatting with you guys. Ozzy, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Shadow of the Collector with periods in between those words.
And Arnie, you're doing all the good work on the RFG page.
I am. It's now Region Free Gamers Podcast because somebody had to point out to us that they didn't realize we had a podcast for quite some time.
Great advertising.
So I was like, oh, you know what? That's actually a solid point. Maybe we should include that in our branding. So it's at Region Free Gamers Podcast on Instagram, at Region Free Gamer on Twitter, because Twitter has a character limit on your handle, which is unfortunate. And yeah, just hit us up. We're on YouTube, Region Free Gamers. Go subscribe, I don't know, atomic leg drop that subscribe button and ruin your back. Dude, like Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan's finishing move, man. You can't beat that. You can't get up from the leg drop.
Yeah. Doesn't he have like major like back issues now as a result of
because
like
he kept
doing
falling
that?
on his ass?
Yes.
I don't know, man. He always looked very casual
as
with
he was
the leg drop.
casually just dropping that leg.
Yeah. I would say most of his moves looked very casual.
That's true. It probably was that one time he picked up Andre the Giant that just like ruined him forever.
Probably. Worth it though.
Absolutely.
Like one of the great moments in wrestling history.
Yeah. But that's where you can find us. And Paul, where can we find you?
Paul's _game room on Instagram.
That's right.
Cool. All right. Thanks again for listening, guys. And don't forget, review and rate.
Yes,
thanks again.
Please. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.